Watchtower got caught by Google Timelapse. Google Timelapse is something that I never heard of until one of my subscribers had pointed it out to me in my last video. So for those who haven't seen the last video that I did, you're going to want to watch this one first because I'm not going to get into all the details that I discussed last week on this, but this is the video right here. Watchtower Masonic Construction Caught in the Act. And the reason I'm making this sequel to this video is because Google Timelapse had backed up exactly what I said in the last video. So let me just go right into the information. So one of my subscribers in the last video made this comment. Nia 1828. I looked all of this up on Google Earth myself, and it's true. What's interesting is to watch the time lapse of the Ramapo site in 2022, which is the last photo Google Earth provides in a time lapse. You can see how natural and normal shape the land used to be. The pyramid shape it is it is in now was completely deliberate. It's actually scary to think about how JWs are being completely duped, yet convinced that they have to follow the governing body even when it makes no sense, etc. It's literally Jim Jones' Heaven's Gate territory. Now, as soon as I got this comment, I knew that I had to look this up because if what this person is saying is true, then it adds further proof to what I said in my last video. So let's go to the Ramapo site again. And for those who haven't watched the last video, you want to go to 155 Sterling Mine Road in Ramapo, New York, or Salzburg, New York. I'm not sure why it comes up in two different addresses or two different town names like that. But this is the address that will bring you right to the structure. So notice what I said in my video last week. I'm going to play just a clip of my video last week on what I said about this design. So I don't know exactly what all these things mean, but if you look at these two images, and again, witnesses got property all over the world. So when you look at these two images, what are the odds that they just happen to build or building their audio center and the layout is the exact same as that? That's impossible. So you heard what I said, right? It's impossible. Now, the Denmark Assembly Hall, it's already impossible that that design is not by coincidence. It's clearly the all-seeing eye and also the Ouija board. But the fact that witnesses own property again all over the world, it is impossible that just by chance they just happen to purchase land that happens to be the same exact shape. And as you can see where the address is located on Google Maps, 155 Sterling Mine Road, which is the eyeball, which is the same in the Den. So it's impossible, as what I was saying. Now, I said that this was impossible just based on the law of averages, but that's what I said, that it is impossible that this is not on purpose. So if Google Timelapse backs this up, like my subscriber said, it validates the law of averages that I spoke about last week, saying that it is impossible that this is not on purpose. So let's see directly on Google if this is a accident. Did it just happens to look that way, or did the witnesses shape it that way on purpose? So again, I've never heard of Google Timelapse personally. And when I looked up Google Timelapse, some of the videos that I was watching to try to find out how to use it, so you go to the layer section on the left, and in some computers or operating systems, there'll be an option that actually says time lapse. but for some reason on my computer, it says historical imagery. At the top of the screen is going to bring up, and on this particular area, you can go back as far as 1985. Was this land already like that by coincidence? And is it just coincidence that the witnesses decided to buy land that was shaped like a giant pyramid, just like the Denmark Assembly Hall? Or did they take land that was normal and create this pyramid shape? Right? Now, remember what I said in my last video that, and again, I'm not a mathematician, but based on the laws of averages, to me, it is impossible odds that this is not on purpose, that they're building their Ramapo project on a giant pyramid that's shaped just like the one in Denmark. So let's go back and look at the years now and see when it actually is that this land turned into a giant pyramid. So we can see 2006, right? And before I go on, where you see 155 Sterling Mine Road, that is the same spot that the pyramid shape is, and that's where the eyeball would be, right? So this is the way the land used to look in 2006. As you can see, it's just a road there and a bunch of forest. There's nothing there. 2007, right? Now let's go to 2008, 2009, 2010, 2011, 2014, 2016, 2018, 2019, 2020. Now, I could be wrong, but from what I remember, I was still, because I was definitely still Jehovah's Witness in 2020. And I believe in 2020 was when they first purchased this land, or at least that's when they started having videos on jw.org about they purchased this land. So I believe that was in 2020, could be in 2021, but I'm pretty sure it was 2020. So we can see that when witnesses purchase this land, it hasn't done anything since, what was it, 2004 we looked at? Nothing has changed in this land. It's nothing but a road right on the left, which would be now the left side of the pyramid. So nothing has changed. So now let's take a look at 2022. The shape that you see within the ground, now that the leaves are gone in this photo, could be the reason that they chose this site to build their pyramid off of. But anyway, so this is 2022. Now, the video that I played last week was showing, I think it said update 2023, if I'm not mistaken. So that's when they started cutting the trees down, was after 2022. So now let's take a look at the next photo, which is now jumping up to 2024. And there you have it, right? That's exactly what I said in the last video. It is impossible that that was just a coincidence that they just happened to purchase land that's shaped in a pyramid shape, the exact dimensions of the Denmark Assembly Hall. And I also said in the last video, even if you think it's some weird coincidence, you can't deny the fact that it's a clear pyramid shape. But as I said, the fact of it being a coincidence, that's impossible odds. And as you can see, and I thank my subscriber for bringing Google Timelapse to my attention, because I didn't know anything about this. If I'd known about this, I would have covered this in the last video. So you can clearly see that the only thing that the witnesses did when they purchased this land is to make a giant pyramid, period. Now you can debate on why they did that, but that's all that they did. Nothing else was done beyond that. That's all they did. And I also mentioned in the last video that you can, when you look at this photo, you can see that there's still branches and like brush from the trees being cut. And I was saying it looks like the same trees that showed in the video that I played where the witnesses were cutting down the trees. And now we can see I was 100% right. That is the brush from what they cut down because no one touched this land. This was just beautiful forest area. And look what they did to the right. They took all those trees. All that is what the witnesses did. And they happened to make a pyramid. Again, this was deliberate. And it even mentioned in the last video, or the video that I played from the site, they even made it a point to say that they cut it down by hand. Right. So they made sure to get the right craftsmanship, right? It wasn't by machines. They mentioned that they had to do it by hand. Right. So this is clearly deliberate. The land didn't look like this. It is deliberate. It's impossible. That's a coincidence. This is the design that they decided to do. Now, if we go back to 2022 and you see like that shape, I think that's why they chose this land because when they want to make structures like this, they're trying to choose a land where they can actually make a pyramid. So this left side, using the road as a side already done, was perfect. And then it curves at the bottom, making the Ouija board curvature that they want. And the way the landscape at the top looks, like the indentation, would make a perfect point of a pyramid. So they probably looked at land all over to see what would be the best way to build this pyramid structure. I don't know exactly what this is going to look like when it's done. I don't know how small the buildings are going to be in that pyramid, or they may not even actually put the buildings in the pyramid. Because if you can see on the right side, that all of that is like roads that they made. So all those roads that you see, those dirt roads on the right side, maybe they're going to put the buildings there, and this pyramid shape could just be like some sort of symbol they're going to make. They're putting so much money in this Ramapo project that I don't think they're going to risk making it so obvious and then they have to abandon the building like they did at Denmark Assembly Hall. So my guess is that as this project moves on, it's going to be harder and harder to see that pyramid. Right? I don't think it's going to be as obvious as the Denmark Assembly Hall, but it could be. But the structure is there. The symbolism is there. Now, here's a picture of the Denmark Assembly Hall. And for those who are my normal subscribers, I've showed the Denmark Assembly Hall many times before. And you might notice that this picture on the right looks a lot more clear than the previous pictures that I've always showed. And this is because once I discovered Google Timelapse, I also realized, well, hey, I can go back to the Denmark Assembly Hall and see what that looked like when witnesses first created the building. So the images that I've always used in my videos for the Denmark Assembly Hall apparently were the images for 2022. But when you can go back in Google Timelapse, you can find even better images of it when they kept up with it a lot better. So in the Denmark Assembly Hall, all the whole assembly hall was in that pyramid structure. And I don't know if they own the land on the right side of that. So with this Ramapo project, this is what I'm saying. I don't think they're going to be as obvious as they were in Denmark because they can't afford to put all this money into this project and then abandon it if they get caught with something like this. So there's a possibility that they're going to just put the buildings on the right side of that pyramid, and this pyramid is going to be some other, say, satanic structure that they're creating. They have this whole land to put their buildings at. So again, it may not be as obvious as this project goes on, but what we can clearly see is the foundation is the same as the Denmark Assembly Hall. And as I said in my last video, that it is impossible that this is a mistake or that it's a coincidence. You can debate on why they did that, but it's clear that they did that. So it is impossible that that's just some coincidence. So now I want to go to the Denmark Assembly Hall on Google Timelapse to show some interesting things about how this developed over time. And one thing that I noticed too when I was messing around with the different filters on Google Earth is that there's still evidence that shows that this is, or that Jehovah's Witnesses were the only organization to occupy this building, so that witnesses can't try to say that, oh, it never was their building. Now, I thought they got rid of all the evidence on Google Earth, like as far as it being registered to them. However, though, if you go to layers and go to exploration where it says borders, labels, places, and roads, and I didn't know this, but if you click on that button, you can see that it still says Jehovah's Witnesses on it. Now that's in Denmark language. I don't know if that says Jehovah's Assembly Hall, but you can see that it's still registered on Google Earth as it being a Jehovah's Witness Assembly Hall. This also proves that no one else has occupied this building. And I said before, I think that the sale of this building was very fraudulent, but if some other company actually bought this, if this was a legitimate sale, then you wouldn't still see the name Jehovah Witnesses on this building. Google would have, it would be updated and it would say whatever organization now is using it. But it's not just that, because then if you click on this, more information comes up. So if you click where it says Jehovah's Vendors on it, it says jw.org, right? It makes it very clear. It's still coming up as it's a Jehovah's Witness building. Now, I'm not saying that they didn't sell it, but as I said before, the sell is just a way that they got it off their hands legally, right? But it still has jw.org connected to this. So if you're, and this is a good thing to show Jehovah's Witnesses, they can't say this is apostate, because you can bring them to this, you could bring them to Google Earth, put in that address, and then you can click on it and say, hey, look, it still says Jehovah on it. This was your assembly hall. They can't deny that. It even still says jw.org. So once you ask them about it, you can say, why does it look like that way? Why did you guys have an assembly hall that's a giant pyramid and eyeball? Right? So just remember that you can click on borders and first click on layers, and then I think it was borders that it was under, and it still comes up as Jehovah. That this shows that nobody else has been using this building. They just sold it to cover it up. Now, 1985 doesn't show anything. So again, I don't know if Watchtower paid somebody to block that out, or for some reason it's just showing up like that. So I don't know, but it even says, it looks like it almost says 2024 on this blurred image. So I don't know if that means they altered it in 2024. I don't know why it says 2024, but when you click on 1985, it's blurred out. Are they covering up somehow like what it used to look like, or they just don't have? I mean, maybe that's normal for Google Timelapse to give a blurry image. I don't know. So 1985 is blurry for whatever reason. So let's just go to 2005. And you can see how well kept this was, how obvious it is, the shape of this. There's no way that's a coincidence. It looks that way. This is the clearest that I've ever seen the Denmark Assembly Hall. You can see the individual lines. You can see the thick eyebrow. You can see the stage is the pupil of the eyeball. So it's designed so that the speaker stands right on the pupil of the eyeball. It's impossible, right? And look at the way those trees are planted. I mean, That takes skill to make something like this. And then you can see the curvature of the Ouija board, which I talked about in the last video. I mean, nobody, and then, I already covered this in many other videos. So, I mean, it's pretty clear that they went through great length to make this perfect, right? So that's what it looked like in 2005. 2014. You can see the trees are growing a little bit thicker, but you still can clearly see, you can see the craftsmanship, right? Whoever did this is pretty skilled. I mean, to be able to create this, they can only be seen from above. That's like a crop circle, right? I mean, crop circles are done so well that that's why people think they're done by aliens because they're so perfect. I mean, that's pretty skilled, right? In 2015, same thing. You can still see the clear design. It's kept up. They make sure they trim his eyebrow, right? The Mr. All-Seeing Eye, he's perfectly trimmed. 2020. Now, this photo, and for those who've been watching my channel, this is the one that I've been using when I didn't know that you can go through different years. And you can see in this photo that this is where they start to let the building go. You see how the grass looks dead, right? It doesn't look as clean cut, as clean shaving, so to say, as it did in 2005. So I know that in 2022, the witnesses did abandon the building at this point. They were no longer using it. So now let's go to 2023. Now, when you look at it now, it really does look like trash, right? It's no longer kept up. I mean, look how sloppy those trees look. The grass is dead. The shape is kind of disappearing. I mean, now if we go back to how it looked in 2005, look how perfect that was in 2005, right? And now look at it now in 2023, right? It's almost like they stopped. Maybe this is when they told the witnesses they can now wear beards, right? When they said in 2023 that grown men can now wear beards, right? You don't have to be clean shaven anymore. Maybe that's what's going on, right? Right? They said, Mr. All-Seeing Eye, you don't got to be clean shaving anymore, right? You can just let your shape grow crazy, right? We don't have to keep up with it anymore. Right? But as you can clearly see that there's a big difference between 2023, where they're clearly letting this thing go, and 2005 when it was, still pretty much new. Now, the reason I wanted to focus on this is I want to play a clip of what I said in my last video. So notice what I said in my last video about in relation to how you can see that the building is almost unrecognizable at this point, right? I mean, look how sloppy it looks on the right. What I think the witnesses are trying to do, or Watchtower, is they want this building to be destroyed to the point where it's unrecognizable. Unrecognizable so that witnesses will never even know what this building actually was. Right? That's the whole reason they stopped using it to begin with. Once the information circulated online that it's the all-seeing eye and pyramid from above, that's when they stopped using the building, and apparently they sold it shortly after that. So, and as you can see, they have destroyed this building. There's holes in the glass, right? It looks like it was vandalized, but as I mentioned in my last video, the witnesses did this on purpose, is what I believe. And as you can see by the way that the all-seeing eye looks now, this pyramid shape, it's just like I said in my last video, it's becoming unrecognizable. Right? In a couple of years, you're not even going to see the eyebrow anymore. The shape of the pyramid and the eyebrow, like it's just going to grow crazy, and you're not even going to see the image anymore. And this is what I said in the last video, that they want it to be unrecognizable so that the witnesses are not going to be able to recognize it. Right? When you try to show this to witnesses in a couple of years from now on Google Earth, it's just going to maybe look like just a bunch of trees, a bunch of overgrown trees. Now, I usually don't read comments like this. I usually don't even respond to them, and most of the time I delete comments like this. But I wanted to show this person's comment because, and I could be wrong, but I have the feeling that this is one of these Watchtower plants. How Watchtower watches so-called apostate videos, and they make comments like this, I think, to gaslight any Jehovah's Witnesses that stumble across my channel to get them back in their brainwashed state. Now, I have been wrong before about certain people, but I want to just read this comment, whether they're a Watchtower plant or they're serious, because what they're saying is very sneaky, very manipulative, and this is how Watchtower operates. So notice what this person says, and then notice what I said in my last video. This person says, from what I heard, the first property in Denmark has been sold a while ago. Maybe someone bought it and it's foreclosed on and abandoned. Happens often, right? Seems very simple, right? But notice what they're saying if you read in between the lines. What they're saying, and let me know if you think that I'm wrong about this, but they're saying basically witnesses sold it a long time ago, right? Like, oh, they sold that building a long time ago. Like, in a sense, it has nothing to do with the witnesses anymore, right? As if maybe it didn't even look like an all-seeing eye, right? Like basically, they got rid of this property a long time ago, and the new owners, right? The new owners couldn't pay their bills, and it got foreclosed on because they couldn't keep up with the payments, right? And this happens often. And witnesses that are still like in that brainwashed state will believe this. They'll look at that and be like, "Oh no, yeah, that's not our property. We don't have nothing to do with that building, right? Oh, it was the new owners, right? They're and they got foreclosed on." So now let me just play what I said last week about this type of subject, about this type of a game that witnesses want to play. So what I personally think is that to sell this building, I think is very fraudulent. I think that they legally just got rid of it somehow, sold it to, but whoever bought the building obviously had no intention of actually using it, right? It's like the Watchtower just found a way to wash their hands clean of it, right? But that's what I think. The witnesses want this building to be so unrecognizable that in 5 years from now, if you try to show Jehovah's Witness at Denmark Assembly Hall, they're going to say it's an apostate lie, right? They're going to say, "What are you talking about? That piece of junk, like that was not an assembly hall." Like, and that's what I think. They want to destroy this so it's unrecognizable. And to me, this is what this feels like with the Denmark Assembly Hall. It's the same playbook from Watchtower. They do the same thing all the time. It's the same thing. They've destroyed the Denmark Assembly Hall, or they let it get destroyed, and they sold it, and they're hoping that it will become so destroyed that it'll be unrecognizable, and then it'll be an apostate lie, right? Just like the pyramid, right? Some witnesses will probably tell you that that's an apostate lie. There is no pyramid at Charles Taze Russell's grave, right? Because they got rid of it. Same thing with the Denmark Assembly Hall, and same thing with the United Nations. So you see how clever this comment is? This is what I warned about in my last video. You see, as they allow this building to get destroyed, and it's becoming so overgrown again, you're not even going to recognize it as the all-seeing eye, the way that it's starting to grow out. And obviously, you can tell by the condition of it that whoever whoever the phantom buyer is that bought this building, right? Whatever type of, you know, fake, however they set it up, obviously had no intentions on using it, right? But this is what this person is saying in their comment. This is exactly what I'm warning the Watchtower is going to do over time. As this building gets even more destroyed and more unrecognizable, witnesses, the Watchtower is going to just try to claim that, like, oh, that's not our building. Oh no, we sold that property decades ago, right? We sold it, and who knows what it was the new owner that turned it into an all-seeing eye, right? And then like they got foreclosed on, and that's why it's like this is what they're trying to do. The more time goes by, they're going to try to pretend they had nothing to do with this property, that as if it was just land that maybe they owned like a decade ago, and you won't be able to prove that it was the all-seeing eye. They'll say, oh no, it was the new owners, right? Well, who are these phantom owners anyway? Right? Who bought this building? Because whoever bought it is not using it. That's what I'm saying. It sounds like to me the witnesses found a way to just get the building off their hands, is what they did. They might have just given it to the state, maybe, right? But just a way to just abandon it. So legally they don't own it, you know. And I also heard, and I haven't been able to verify this, but I heard that after the witnesses sold the building, they were still renting it. Now, if that's true that they were still renting it after they sold it, then that proves also that it's very fraudulent. Like maybe they sold it just to try to pretend it's not their building, but they were still using it. Now, I know for a fact that in 2019 they were still using it. I have a couple of videos on my page where when I first found this, there was a Google Street View dated 2019, and in 2019 they still had the Jehovah's Witness sign at the entrance, right? So in 2019 they were still using this building. Even if they weren't holding assemblies there, they were still actively using it in 2019, which wasn't that long ago, right? But now the sign has been removed. So, but anyway, so this person that made this comment, and again, trying to go with the angle of like, all witnesses, they got rid of that decades ago. It was, the new owners, they take it, and they're the ones that let the building get trashed and all that stuff. Had nothing to do with the witnesses. Well, you see, there's one problem with that, because if you go to Google Earth, as I showed earlier, and you click on layers and you click on exploration, borders, labels, places, and roads, it's showing that the last organization to occupy this building is Jehovah's Witnesses, period. Right? And this is the type of thing that Watchtower can't cover up. The only organization that's ever occupied this building were Jehovah's Witnesses, regardless of who technically holds the deed to it, right? Whoever they sold it to, however they got this building off their hands, this is still on Google Earth now, right? So this person trying to claim that, oh, witnesses sold it decades ago and it was the new owners that taken over and they let it get abandoned. Well, the evidence shows that the witnesses are the last organization to occupy this building, period. And one thing too about the above comment is that, you see, on my channel, I always deal with facts. I show you everything. I don't just say things, I show you things. So this evidence is basically showing, that's still on Google Earth now, is that the witnesses are the only ones that ever really occupy this building as an organization, period. So when this person says that the new owners, bought it and it got foreclosed, well, show me the evidence, right? Show me that basically another organization purchased this building and is this organization, and then they got foreclosed on. But you see, a lot of times what the witnesses will do, mainly Watchtower, like people that come on here working for Watchtower, what I think they are, but they will just say things to try to get your mind somewhere else, but they don't prove anything. It's like they will just say something to try to cause doubt on your mind. But as far as I mean, I'll believe it. If you show me some documents that say another organization had owned this hall for decades and, and all this stuff that I got foreclosed on, I'll believe it. But the evidence that I see is basically making it very clear that the witnesses were the last people to occupy this building. And that's why when you click on Google Earth, it's still attached to jw.org. Now, there's one more comment that I want to show, and I just want to explain something. So I'm here to bring truth. So when people want to come on here, mainly Watchtower trolls, like, I don't basically feed into it. So if somebody purposely says something stupid, sometimes I just delete those comments. I don't want to waste my time engaging with these people because I'm too far above that. But this comment, and I've seen this person comment on other videos that I've done, and I couldn't help to showcase and mention this comment, because I've been doing this YouTube channel for a little over a year. And of all the comments that I've read, this by far is probably the absolute dumbest XJW. I'm sorry, not XJW. This got to be the dumbest Jehovah's Witness on the planet. I don't think I've seen a comment this stupid. And it's so stupid that I don't know if this is a real person. Like, again, is this just Watchtower trying to gaslight people? Or is this an example of how brainwashed a Jehovah's Witness is? Right. So let me know in the comments what you think. Like, is this an example of Jehovah's Witnesses being so brainwashed? Or is he just trying to gaslight people? So this is what he says. He says, and this is referring to my last video on the same subject. The picture is not what you claim it to be, which doesn't surprise me any. At any cost, you are going to try to associate the JW organization to the Masons. So first he says the picture is not what I claim it to be. Now, and this is what just boggles my mind. Like, is this like the psychology of an absolute brainwash, brain dead Jehovah's Witness? Like, is he really that dumb? Or is he really just trying to gaslight and make us question our sanity? Because when he says the picture is not what you claim it to be, I showed you on Google Earth. I showed you the address to both of these locations. And I showed you on Google Earth. So what more can I do than give you the exact address? And you can look it up yourself. So what does it mean the picture is not what I claim it to be? Does it mean like when I put the little red marks like pointing to different things out? Well, if you notice in this video, I didn't add any extra marks that I didn't do last week. So I mean, is he talking about because I circled certain areas? Like, so one, I gave you the address. So what does he mean the picture is not what I claim it to be? So again, is he just trying to like gaslight and make us all question our sanity? Like, I mean, is this like brainwashing tactics for Jehovah's Witnesses? I don't know. Or is he that dumb? But then he says, which doesn't surprise me any. So it's almost like he's saying that like he's not surprised that I'm lying about the pictures that I showed. I mean, what does he think? Do the apostates run Google Earth too? Is that it? Google Maps are owned by apostates. I mean, well, anyway, so let me just go on. So then he says, at any cost, you're going to try to associate the JW organization with the Masons. So I'm just showing the facts. I'm showing you the addresses. This is the address. Go to Google Earth, look at it yourself. Zoom in, do whatever you want to do. When he says that I'm trying to associate the JW organization with the Masons, the Watchtower put the Freemason logo on the very first Watchtower magazine. Right? It's on the first Watchtower magazine. There's no question. I'm not linking Masons with the Watchtower. They put the Mason logo or one of the Freemason logos on the first cover of the Watchtower magazine. Period. And then when it comes to this all-seeing eye pyramid, I mean, associate that with whatever you want to associate that with. But I'm not trying to link anything. I'm basically showing you the facts and I'm putting the addresses out there. But again, when it comes to this person, I'm sorry. I don't want to be rude when I'm calling him brain dead and things like that because it's really, I actually do apologize for that. I don't script my videos, so like sometimes I say things and I don't really think after like should I have said that. So I do apologize for saying that because if he's a real person, he really is brainwashed. I shouldn't make fun of that because this organization really does brainwash people. So if he's not a Watchtower plant, like if he's a real person, then this is a prime example of that these people are brainwashed for real. It's not just a figure of speech to say they brainwash people. This is a person that's so brainwashed that they're delusional to the point where even when I'm putting the addresses on the screen, and you can go to Google Earth yourself and see what I'm saying, in his state, he's so brainwashed that he says it's not what I claim it to be. Like, so I can't say for a fact what this Ramapo project is going to look like when they're done. Are they going to put the buildings in the pyramid, like in the Denmark Assembly Hall? Like, are they going to be making their videos inside the pyramid, or are they going to use the land where they have the dirt roads to the right of the pyramid? And how are they going to cover this up? Because again, I don't think they're going to be as obvious as they were in Denmark, because then they're going to have to just sell it again, right? Just like they did Denmark. But the proof is still there. So anybody can watch this video, any XJW, and you can click on it on this site. You can go back in time, look at all the different versions of it, and if you click on borders, it still comes up as Jehovah's Witnesses, and jw.org is still attached to it. So this is a good opportunity to question Jehovah's Witnesses about this assembly hall, because until another real actual owner takes this building over, which probably will never happen, but until a legitimate buyer really uses this property, Google's going to stay calling it Jehovah's Witness vendors, right? Google's going to keep calling it this because Google knows that Jehovah's Witnesses are the only people to occupy this building, regardless of whatever fraudulent sale that they made to cover up the truth.